Ahead on America This Week, the Supreme Court gains a new justice, and the end is in sight for the chaotic 2020 election season.
You lose family income, you lose jobs, you lose 10% of the economy at least.
Yep. I'm talking with the director of the National Economic Council and the White House economic advisor, Larry Kudlow.
Well, let's not fool around. This hard drive demonstrates numerous federal crimes.
President Trump's personal attorney and former mayor of New York City, Rudy Giuliani, is back. I'm also talking with Michael Knowles with the Daily Wire. And the president of the Judicial Crisis Network, Carrie Severino, returns.
I hope that Senator Sanders is part of a Biden administration if Joe wins. I would make him ambassador to Tonga.
Plus, you don't want to miss my interview with my good friend and host of No Spin News, Bill O'Reilly. That's right now on America This Week. Well, this is it, folks. The home stretch, the end is finally in sight. By the time I see you next week, hopefully, we can start putting all this election stuff behind us and move forward. Assuming, ballots have been tallied and there aren't any lingering issues. But then again, this is 2020 after all, so anything can happen. President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, was mobbed by protesters during a Jews for Trump rally in New York City. Let's go now to the man himself, Mr. Mayor. Welcome back. Are you surprised? I'm frankly surprised. I know there's animosity, left-right animosity, but are you surprised at the amount of vitriol that you're receiving just because you want to expose what you believe is some important information regarding the Biden family?
This has been going on since I represented the president, this kind of vicious, animalistic behavior. I mean, actually, I wasn't part of that demonstration. I saw it from far away. I saw all these people with Trump signs. That's really the story. Here in New York, that 90% Democrat, there were 50 cars going down Fifth Avenue beeping for Trump, which they have a First Amendment right to do. Meanwhile, these Antifa people started throwing things at them. And then I saw one rip stuff off the car and scratch up the car. So I pulled over. I said to the lieutenant, "You're going to arrest that guy." And he said, "No, Mr. Mayor, you're not the mayor anymore. Our mayor is a moron. He doesn't allow us to do it." So then I thought, well, I'm just going to follow them, make sure they don't get in trouble. And they did. I mean, they had a lot of people and they were cursing at me. I mean, I'd love to have people see the comparison. These group of thugs who look like they haven't had a shower in 2 weeks, scratching up cars, ripping up cars, doing damage. And then a group of very, very nice, we're called Jews for Jesus, very nice people, well-dressed, well-behaved, just wanting to exercise their First Amendment right and wanting to get it over with fast enough so they go to work the next day. Meanwhile, these bums are probably off to another demonstration paid for by George Soros.
Yeah.
That's the America we're going to get. If we vote for Biden, that's the America we're going to get.
It's a peaceful protest as long as you're on the right side of their opinion. If you're on the other side, it becomes violent very quickly. Mr. Mayor, let's talk. But I want to get.
I'd have arrested every single one of them.
I want to get to some of the stuff that you've been exposing. You've been rolling this out over the past couple of weeks, and I noted that Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, was testifying in front of a Senate panel, and he had said that they will not re-platform the New York Post, who broke kind of the story that you're talking about as well. They will not re-platform the New York Post Twitter account until they pull down all the tweets regarding Hunter Biden. What do you say to Jack Dorsey, the founder, the chairman of Twitter, with this type of censorship?
It seems to me it's gone beyond censorship. It seems to me he's an accessory after the fact to the numerous crimes committed by Hunter Biden, including the endangering of children. I mean, this man is a menace, Jack Dorsey.
Can you expand on that?
Let's not fool around. This hard drive demonstrates numerous federal crimes, including the following in Hunter's own words. I don't want to get it wrong now. I want to get it right because it is very explosive. It says he is speaking to his father. She, meaning his sister-in-law, who he was having an affair with and living with until she threw him out. She told my therapist that I was sexually inappropriate with, and he mentions a 14-year-old girl. When she says that, I FaceTime naked with her And the reason I can't have her out to see me is because I'll walk around naked, smoking crack, talking tom girls on FaceTime. When she was pressed, she said that I never said anything like that. But the bottom line is, quote, I create and caused a very unsafe environment for the kids. Now, if you look at the photos, you're darn right he created an unsafe environment for the kids. He walked around the house nude, taking pictures consistently of his private parts, sometimes FaceTiming women, while smoking crack. It looks to be that he smokes crack twice a day. There are many pictures of him smoking crack. So yes, were those kids in an unsafe environment? Yes. Did anybody do anything about it? No. Is Jack Dorsey covering it up? Yes. I think Jack Dorsey's covering up child pornography.
Okay. So I got to do this because every time I host you, I get the left comes at me like, why didn't you push back? What? So you feel comfortable with
pushback?
Yeah, I get pushback saying push Rudy back saying that this isn't. Well, here's the question: why isn't law enforcement getting involved?
Because law enforcement is paralyzed. Law enforcement is either anti-Trump, or they're afraid that they will do to them what they do to me. Demonize us, say that I'm a Russian spy, claim that I took money from people I never met. You have no idea the stuff they've done to me for the last year and a half. I just have been through it so often, and I'm so damn old, I've already had my career. I don't have to worry about a career.
Mr. Mayor,
I've already put people in jail.
Mr. Mayor, you are
plenty of people in jail. These are, to me, these people are a bunch of scummy criminals. For 30 years, they've been selling out the public trust. All you got to look at is his 5 mansions, which he bought on a senator's salary, and go listen to Harry Truman, who said anybody who enters politics poor and leaves rich is a crook.
Mr. Mayor,
you're right, Harry.
Mr. Mayor, you're a former federal prosecutor. You're a former mayor. You're an attorney. You know the law inside now, and you've just made a fairly hefty claim, accessory after the fact, for the crimes of the Biden family. We're talking about Jack Dorsey and Twitter, founder of Twitter, is an accessory to and what you call some federal crimes, including endangerment of children. Those are big. I mean,
there are a lot more. There's bribery. There's extortion. I mean, there's a straight out and out bribe when Hunter Biden says that I get the money, I pay for the family expenses, and I kick back half to Dad for 30 years. He just laid out a 30-year conspiracy to commit bribery, which I could make into a racketeering case.
Yeah.
I mean, why hasn't anybody subpoenaed the records of Joe Biden's homes?
You know, I hear you.
Let's see who bought
and some of the things that they're going after President Trump after for taxes and how much taxes you pay. These seems pretty salacious, pretty damning. Here's the quick question. I only got a minute, sir. If Christopher Wray and the FBI had all this material for all this time, where the hell was the prosecution?
They covered it up. There's no doubt about it. Like they covered up the Brennan.
Why are they? Is this the deep state that everyone's been talking about? Did they want to get Trump out? Is this part of it?
Yes. Yes, they wanted to get Trump out. Yes, absolutely. And when hatred enters your body, your mind, your soul, it eats away at your conscience, it eats away at your rationality, and you become maniacs like these people are. This is completely unjustifiable not to cover this story. It's completely un-American. It's inconsistent with everything we were founded to be. This could be the worst invasion of rights in America. I mean, it's like putting the Japanese in camp, except it's being done to all of us.
You know, Mr. Mayor, we're going to leave it there.
It's outrageous what they're doing.
We're going to leave
Dorsey, whether he committed a crime or not, he's not an American. He's something else. Maybe he's working for the Chinese. I don't know. But you don't cut down information like this. He has no right to say this is not valid. It's in the man's own voice. Yeah. Hunter Biden is telling you he and his father are partners with a Chinese spy chief.
I will tell you, I'm hoping none of that is right, but I'm concerned that it is right, and these things all happen.
You know me for a long time.
I do.
You know
Mr.
me.
Mayor,
do you think...
I'm not questioning your credibility.
It is
I'm
right.
simply saying the people who push back on an interview like this are the ones who want to stifle free
Are
speech.
liars.
This is free
They're liars.
speech. You're
They
allowed to
won't
bring
put me
this.
on.
We'll hear it on the other side as well. I'd love to get the Bidens to come on, but
They're
again,
liars.
they hide under the covers and they will not come on. No one
Doesn't it make
representing
a difference that
any
I
of the
come
Bidens
on and
will
they
come on.
don't?
It does, sir. And I just want to point out
Because
that,
they're liars.
In the interest of journalism and free speech, we are entertaining this, and I'm just praying against everything that this isn't true. But somehow you have a lot of evidence, a lot of corroborating evidence. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your time.
It is true.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's go now to the director of the National Economic Council and the White House Economic Advisor, Larry Kudlow. Larry, welcome back. Sir, let's talk a little bit. I watch the stock markets jumping all around. Every time someone says there might be a deal with COVID relief, it rallies. And they say, no, it's not going to happen. It falls apart. Do you believe COVID relief will happen, and what will happen to not only the stock market, but the economy if it does?
Well, look at, there's two things going on in the market. Let me start with your point. We are still in negotiations with Speaker Pelosi's team. But increasingly, Eric, our team's point of view is that they don't want a compromise. We are coming around to that view with a few days left, that they don't really want a compromise, and they're kind of stringing us along. We are still discussing it, so it's never over till it's over.
Yeah.
But we are not at all confident.
You and I come from the world of reading the tea leaves, and it doesn't. The tea leaves are all pointing to certainly not before the election does it look like the two sides will come together. Larry, you've said that you believe this is a V-shaped recovery. I've known you a long time. We go back 20 years from CNBC days. I know what a V-shaped recovery looks like. To me, and other people are talking about a K-shaped recovery. Not a bad thing. Better than no recovery, but meaning a K-shape, meaning some industries, some businesses are doing well, they bounce back, and others not so well, they fall, so it makes the letter K. It looks like, I think the brick and mortar stuff, are they ever going to come back, some of the brick and mortar stores, retailers?
Well, hang on a second. I mean, couple things here. There is basically an across-the-board boom going on. Look, you can go through the major categories of the economy. Housing, booming. Okay, retail sales booming. Okay, manufacturing, business equipment, durable goods booming. Automobiles, Eric, booming. That is undeniable. All right, and inventories are rock bottom. So for the next several quarters, inventories have to be rebuilt to produce more.
Larry,
to
that
meet
is
the demand,
that is
and that means more
that
jobs.
Is one of the most
more jobs.
One of the most important things that no one's really talking about is rebuilding inventory.
Yeah.
That is a lot of economic activity. That's a lot of money and a lot of goods that pass through the system, and that is good for the economy.
I mean, what you got going here, Eric, is major business-to-business spending, okay? Business-to-business, and then business to consumers. That's why I'm arguing the third quarter GDP that will come out tomorrow, it's going to be a good number, but that's not it. It's going to spill over. The momentum is carrying through to the fourth quarter, and with good policies, we can have a bang-up 2021. But I do want to put one, you were talking about the stock market. The market is suffering today because you've got a massive, unfortunately, a massive COVID outbreak going on in Europe. It looks like Germany is going to shutter down the businesses, and I believe France as well, and we're all waiting to see how that spreads. That's weighing very heavily on the market today.
So you had said, Larry, that you just mentioned it again, that 2021 was going to be a strong year. I've heard you on record say 4 to 6% growth for 21.
Yes.
That's a great number. That's
Yes.
a big number. Would that happen under President Biden also, though?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, look, Biden team, first of all, they're going to have across-the-board tax hikes. Now, Eric, we're coming out of a deep pandemic contraction. If John Maynard Keynes were here, okay? I didn't even know him, as old as I am. I never met him, but I read his books. If John Maynard Keynes were here, he would say, do not raise taxes. A good Keynesian would be cutting taxes. That's why I don't understand the Biden plan. Now, the Hoover Institute, Kevin Hassett and some others, Casey Mulligan, at Stanford University, they're saying if the Biden plan comes into place, rolling back all the tax cuts, re-regulating large chunks of the economy, including energy. What that will do is lose 5 million jobs, cost us 10% of GDP, all right, negative, and the $6,500 increase in typical family income, which was a great Trump achievement, 5 times what the Obama people did over 8 years, that will be gone. You lose family income, you lose jobs, you lose 10% of the economy at least.
Yep.
And they're going to try to regulate the health. They want to basically take over the healthcare sector. They want to basically take over and ruin the energy sector. So we'll have no electricity, no cheap electricity for businesses, for consumers, for home heating. It is the worst idea I have ever seen. He may deny it about fracking, but he wants to end carbon emissions by 2035. That means it's not just no oil. It means no natural gas.
Yeah.
And that's the key to the whole energy sector, the booming natural gas, which is cheap.
The cheap fuel, energy is the lifeblood of a thriving economy like the U.S. economy.
Right.
We've been fortunate to have cheap fuel for many, many years, likely many years to come, unless something comes along to change that. And that could be a President Biden with one little young lady named Ocasio-Cortez who says, I'm going to pull him left and I'm going to make sure the Green New Deal happens under President Biden. That would cost us all dearly. Larry Kudlow, we'll keep an eye on that GDP number, and hopefully you're right, sir.
Thanks, Eric. Take care, buddy.
Talk soon. Despite Democrats' best efforts this week, Amy Coney Barrett became our newest Supreme Court justice. Joining me now is the president of the Judicial Crisis Network and expert on all things Supreme Court, Carrie Severino. Carrie, thank you for joining us. So the ACB appointment, why is that so important to conservatives?
Well, for so long, we have had Republican nominees who have not, in fact, been faithful to the Constitution and the rule of law. Some of the most liberal justices in American history, in fact, Earl Warren himself, like the Chief Justice, who presided over the most liberal court probably in American history, appointed by Republicans. And so this really is kind of the crowning glory of the progress the conservative legal movement has made. And also, I've got to say, President Trump's real insight into the fact that it is absolutely a central role of the president to make judicial appointments and to make bold ones. A lot of people, in previous administrations, someone like Amy Coney Barrett wouldn't have even been considered because her views were so clear. The idea was you had to find someone who kind of maybe was secretly an originalist but wasn't actually talking about it, or things like that. She's someone who's just out there and says, this is who I am and this is my approach, and that's the principled approach. And it's so exciting to see her.
And right prior to Amy Coney Barrett's appointment, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was still alive on the bench, it was a 5-4 conservative lean. But as you point out, so many judges, Chief Justice Roberts, in fact, was one of them who's not necessarily a conservative. He couldn't be counted on to vote with a conservative POV all the time. So this appointment makes it a 6-3, which really kind of may be a 5-4. Am I right?
Well, I think that time will tell on that. It could be that the Chief Justice, having that sort of burden of everyone telling him, you're the swing vote, you're the defense of the integrity of the court, and the legitimacy of the courts in your hands. And of course, we know that when the liberal media says that, what they mean is vote our way or we're going to all claim that you're illegitimate. Now that's off his shoulders. Now I hope that he can return to what previously, before things started going crazy with the Obamacare decision, was more of his pattern, which was he's not a declared originalist, but he was much more consistent in terms of looking at what the law actually said.
Carrie, this show will air just days prior to the election. If this thing goes on and on and on, tell us the process that the Supreme Court could get involved in deciding who actually won the election.
Unfortunately, anytime the elections are close, we have a lot of litigation that follows that. And if it's close enough in the right places, you could end up with a Bush versus Gore type scenario. The left's already worried about that. They're trying to claim falsely that she would need to recuse herself in that case. That's simply never been the standard. You've got everyone, Kagan and Sotomayor, they sat on election-related disputes. They had to do with Obama, who nominated them. Similarly, for Ginsburg and Breyer, they sat in disputes involving President Clinton, who nominated them. That's never been the standard. But we could see the court, and they're already going into the election having to weigh in because we have a lot of last-minute attempts to change rules in the middle of an election, basically, as to how
can I stop you on there right there? Because this went to the Pennsylvania issue went to the Supreme Court. It got pushed back. So Pennsylvania got 3 additional days to count ballots. So this could actually happen in other states if things are real tight. States could petition to get more time to count the ballots to find out who won, say, North Carolina. I think they asked for additional time. Or a big important state like Florida, for example. How does that process work, and how does the Supreme Court how does it end up at the court?
Well, they would work their way up in the federal courts. There'd be a trial court and then an appeals court that would get to weigh in, and then the Supreme Court. In cases like this, though, you might have them petitioning directly to the Supreme Court itself, because obviously there would not be a lot of time to go through that process. In those situations, the court often, and has done so in these cases, they don't hear oral arguments. They just issue a quick opinion. Sometimes you don't even get all the justices explicitly weighing in. But some of the recent ones, we saw Justice Kavanaugh, I think, had a great opinion explaining some of the importance of the court shouldn't be endorsing last-minute changes. We need to have deadlines in elections so we understand and the process is consistent for both sides. And he cautioned against courts jumping in and second-guessing the legislature. So sometimes it's a legislature that's changing the rules, and that's one thing. But when you have a court at the last minute substituting its policy judgment for how the legislature decided to deal with COVID or to deal with an election, that's something that's even more of a concern and can lead to real questions about legitimacy going at the end of an election.
So I do the math, and I've done the math for presidential elections, probably 4 or 5 cycles. There is a path where North Carolina could be the deciding state in the election. Now, North Carolina has asked for 9 additional days. At some point, could either the Trump administration or the Biden camp say, Supreme Court, declare a winner? Is that a possibility?
Well, I think what would happen is they would declare whether whatever lower court issued an injunction saying they could or they couldn't have those extra days to count was going to do it. It's not the court saying we like Biden, we like Trump. That would be very similar potentially to Bush versus Gore, where what was happening is Florida was changing its own rules, recounting these jurisdictions and recounting them in inconsistent ways. And that was ultimately when the court had to step in and say, no, you can't just pick and choose and recount certain districts and not do others. And so when they said stop recounting, it effectively, had the effect of saying, okay, Bush was ahead at that point, he won. But we have to remember, it's the court is making this based on legal questions. Those legal questions could go, one way if it's a Democrat asking for the thing, another way if it's Republicans. We hope that what they should be doing is looking at the legal standards of how a court should be trying to govern these things, and not themselves choosing.
All right. After the election, we'll bring you back and we'll talk about what the future arguments that the court may be hearing going forward and how that may change life in America. Again, Supreme Court, one of the most important things a president can do, appoint Supreme Court Justice. Carrie Severino, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Aaron.
He's the host of the Michael Knowles Show with the Daily Wire and co-host of The Verdict with Ted Cruz on a podcast. Michael Knowles, great to get you back in the chair. A couple of days till the election. It looks like there could be over 100 million people who have voted early. It's going to be big numbers final. But what does that mean? Does that mean we're going to kind of have an idea who wins election night? Your thoughts?
I don't think we're going to know who wins necessarily on election night, unless there's a big upset in, Florida or, I don't know, Texas or somebody like some eccentric left-wing prognosticator.
Trump wins New York.
That goes the wrong way. Trump wins New York. Trump wins California. But barring something like that, I don't think we're going to know on election night. What it also means, though, is that Can I Change My Vote is going to keep trending on Google, because even back when there had been 65 million votes cast, that had become a big trend. And in certain states, you actually can change your vote, though it's such a hassle. I suspect a lot of people won't do it. Raises a lot of questions about early voting, universal unsolicited mail-in. But this is certainly the strangest election in my lifetime. And I think as a result, there is no way that those armies of lawyers that the campaigns have are going to let this thing go on election night, barring some big flip of a state.
No doubt, especially with Pennsylvania and North Carolina looking like they may go well past the November 3rd deadline, artificial deadline. I read this story this week. It kind of blows me away. People in businesses in D.C., in Philadelphia, even Rodeo Drive, are already starting to board up their windows in anticipation of, what are they, peaceful protests they expect on election night, in anticipation of violence on election night.
Of course, and I think they should absolutely board up their shops. I mean, we've seen the violence now for, what is it, 6 or 7 months already. It is political violence. It rarely has anything to do with any particular action or any particular question of justice. It is simply political. And I know a lot of people are saying right now that after the election, if Joe Biden wins, things are going to go back to normal. That's basically been the pitch of the Biden campaign, that we can't take 4 more years of this. I am not so certain about that. I am skeptical that Democratic politicians are going to give up the lockdown power that they have taken, specifically with coronavirus. And I'm not convinced that it's going to bring down the tenor of the country. The left is already talking about adding 2 new states. D.C. and Puerto Rico. They're already talking about packing the Supreme Court. They're already talking about abolishing the Electoral College. We're talking about major changes here. I think that the past 4 years have been very difficult for the progressives and the leftists who are very offended by President Trump. And frankly, I think they're out for vengeance.
You know, Michael, I guess it's common wisdom or common thought that if Donald Trump does prevail in the election, that there will be rioting and looting and everything going on, violence in the streets. What happens if Biden wins? Will the conservatives tear up the joint?
You know, I think we're a little more laid back than all of that. We're not really prone to political violence, but it actually gets down to our views of politics. The reasons that conservatives just do not go out there and riot in the way that leftists frequently go out there and riot is because our conservative view of politics is that sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. There are limits to politics. And it's essentially a humble view of the political order. Whereas for the progressive left, anytime a Republican wins, it is by definition illegitimate because they know the arc of history. They know the end of history. They know the science of history, and they are supposed to win. They are progressing toward utopia. And if you stand in the way of that, it has to be illegitimate.
And it must be illegitimate because the polls were telling us that Biden was going to win. But let's talk about that for a second. Polls are historically wrong because of the methodology that people use when they execute a poll. It's D plus how many, which means the poll is skewed to many more Democrats being polled. The other one is, I will tell you this, unequivocally in 2016 and in 2020, people were afraid to say they were voting for Donald Trump or supporting Donald Trump because the left has painted Trump as such a racist, such a misogynist, such a xenophobe that if you support someone like that, you must be the same. So if someone picks up the phone and says, who are you going to vote for? I'm not going to vote. Or, oh, Biden. A very different thing happens when you get in the voting booth.
That's right. You can only rely on the polls and the models when you're in relatively normal times, right? Because modeling is taking the past and predicting the future. I got to tell you, this year is not normal times. We've got a crazy virus. We've got universal, widespread mail-in ballots. We've got murder hornets, for goodness sakes. There is nothing normal about 2020. And so perhaps some of the polls will be accurate, but I just think you can't rely on those. And we've also seen evidence that they're oversampling Democrats and they're trying to suppress the conservative vote because there are 2 kinds of elections. There are persuasion elections where you try to win over the middle, and there's turn out the vote elections where you try to get your base to come out. This one is emphatically the latter. People have had their opinions about Trump since the 80s. There are very few undecideds, so it's all about which side can bring out more voters.
I will just give you 2 quick examples. Be cautioned because Drudge this week had one of their headlines, Trump 4% chance of winning. I do remember New York Times going into election night, 92% chance. 92% chance Hillary Clinton was going to win that up until maybe even 7 or 8 o'clock at night. That they had a meter was all the way over, basically pegged that Hillary Clinton. It started to go like this through the night. Michael Knowles, always good to have you back on again. Michael Knowles Show and The Verdict with Ted Cruz. Thank you so much.
Good to see you, Eric.
Straight ahead, Bill O'Reilly returns. Trust me, this is one interview you just don't want to miss. And we're now just days away from electing our next president. Last week, we had a 1-hour town hall with President Trump. And despite reaching out every week for months and months, Joe Biden's campaign has continued to ignore our offer to come on this show or do his own town hall with us. Mr. Biden, the ship has sailed. Best of luck next week. Come on, man. Election 2020. The rancor. The constant controversy.
Nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
The debate.
I just want to make sure.
The issues.
We won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America this week.
America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, points out how rough and tumble politics shape opinion in every region in our country. We tell American stories, stories that touch our people, determine our politics, focus on the future of America.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America this week. Election 2020. The rancor. The constant controversy.
Nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
The debate.
I just want to make sure.
The issues.
We won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America this week. Let's get right to the interview segment. He recently released a new book, Killing Crazy Horse. Welcome back to the show, the host of No Spin News, my good friend Bill O'Reilly. Boy, by the way, this man sells books. This book is fantastic. I read it. I love it. Also on the New York Times bestseller list. As other books come and go on that list, Bill O'Reilly's book, Killing Crazy Horse, remains. We'll talk about that in a second, Bill. AOC, over the weekend, Ocasio-Cortez, the Green New Deal Congresswoman from New York, said this to Jake Tapper. Listen.
Do you think that that's going to be a major part of your role under a potential Biden administration, trying to push him to the left?
You know, is my job to push the Democratic Party? Absolutely. And that has been my job since, and that has been a part of my role since I've been elected.
And Bill, that has to be a major concern for America, that to see a first-term Congresswoman saying that it's her job to pull a President Biden to the left. Your thoughts?
Well, Kamala Harris is going to do that. You don't need a congresswoman from the Bronx to do that. Harris, the VP, is going to do that. I mean, look, if you vote for Joe Biden, and I'm not coming at this from an acrimonious point of view. I'm not. But if you vote for Joe Biden, you're voting to dismantle traditional America, and that includes capitalism. I mean, Biden wants to spend $15 trillion on weather theories. I believe that climate change is real, but am I going to throw $11 trillion into some maybe wind will mitigate it? No, I'm not. I'm going to work with the climatologists and the environmentalists to get the United States to be as clean as possible, all the while knowing that China and India will not cooperate at all, and that global warming is going to continue. We're not going to ruin the U.S. economy because Ocasio-Cortez says we have to do this. I mean, but Biden will. So that's who you're voting for, and it's pretty clear.
Yeah. You know, I'm pretty sure you're not a Bernie bro, but I'm also hearing indications that Bernie Sanders wants to be part of a Biden administration if he becomes president, if Biden becomes president. You have Ocasio-Cortez pulling Biden to the left on fuel and energy and environmentalist issues, and then you have Bernie bro basically bringing Democrat socialism to America.
Well, number one, I hope that Senator Sanders is part of a Biden administration if Joe wins. I would make him ambassador to Tonga, which is an island in the South Pacific. Bernie would go and do a little of this out there. It's nice weather. That's where I'd put him. Why not?
He wants to be labor secretary. He wants to be the labor secretary, and we all know what that means, $20, $25 an hour mandates.
He wants to be labor secretary, and then we'd have a hammer and sickle on every piece of correspondence coming out of there. Come on. The guy's a communist. He is. Bernie Sanders is a communist. He don't believe in private property. I mean, everybody knows that.
Here's what I'm getting at, Bill. Here's what I'm getting at.
Party.
You're looking at Biden and Kamala Harris going out there saying, I'm for fracking, I'm for this, that, and the other. When they get in there, we may see a completely different America run by Democrats, socialists, perhaps.
There's no may about it. If they win and the Senate goes Democrat, you see, the Senate, if it stays Republican, will block a lot of this insanity. Yep. But if the Democrats sweep, as I said, America is dismantled.
Let's get to this. This is a big story. Wall Street Journal so the whole story, the Hunter Biden, as President Trump on my show last week said, it's the laptop from hell. Wall Street Journal opinion side, Kim Strassel pointing out some very important things that she found and believed. And the news side said they didn't refute it. They just said they're not going to go ahead and jump into that story. What do you think's going on?
I know what's going on. The K Street people in Washington, D.C., that advise the Democratic Party have basically told the corporate media chieftains, if you run the Hunter Biden story, we will not cooperate with you after we're elected. So therefore, after the Bobolinsky interview last night on Fox News, and he was Hunter Biden's business partner, no one picked it up. No one. Okay? Because they go, we need access to Biden-Harris if they win. That's what's going on.
So news divisions across, let's call it, all right, let's do this. You know, there's the old school media. And the new school media being Twitter, Facebook, they've basically murdered old school media, but now they're coming back and saying, hey, jump in bed with us. You're not going to run this Hunter Biden story because we don't think, and I'm talking about Jack Dorsey testifying a Senate hearing this week, saying that, look, if they won't run it, why should we?
Well, look, do you have a picture of Dorsey you can put up there? I thought Dorsey was playing second base for the Tampa Bay Rays. And look at the beard on the guy. I mean, what's going on here? The culture, as you know, Bolling, in Silicon Valley, where all these people live, is far left. And they're going to do whatever they can to advance far left causes. So that's why you see a story about Hunter Biden not being disseminated by the high-tech companies. It's very simple. The fix is in.
Yeah. Very quickly, it blows me away that the left is supposed to be all about free speech, you know, peaceful protesting, free speech, First Amendment, and then rather than allowing this story to get air, to see air, to get lights on it, disinfect it, so to speak, by hey, maybe it's not true. Who knows? But let's at least explore it, pull it apart. That's what journalism's supposed to be, but they don't want any part of that when it's against them. Bill, the book. Tell me about Killing Crazy Horse. I talked about it at the beginning of this segment. Moving back up the New York Times bestseller list. That's quite a feat, my friend.
Yes. And first of all, you all should know that Bolling is so busy that the fact that he read Killing Crazy Horse is just, I'm just blown away. 9th Killing book, the most successful non-fiction book series of all time. 17 million copies of my books in print. And they say that Killing Crazy Horse is the best one. If you go to Amazon.com, 93% of the folks, not the pinhead reviewers, the folks, say the book is excellent. That really makes me feel good. You want to know about the history of your country in an honest way? You want to know about the Indian Wars, 77 years of them? Killing Crazy Horse.
And you know what? I'm one of the folks, Bill, and I want to wish you congratulations on another very successful book. Always great having you. Just a couple days before the election. We'll get you back right afterwards and see what the heck just happened. Thanks, Bill O'Reilly, everybody. Ahead on America This Week, the race for the White House is finally coming to an end. Our panel discusses the differences between the two campaigns as Election Day approaches. And Pebble Mine is an American treasure. It holds trillions of dollars of rare earth minerals, copper, molybdenum, palladium, material we need for everything from building roads to fighter jet engines, materials we currently import from primarily China. I sat down with Dan Kish, who's trying to get Pebble Mine up and running while the environmentalist lobby is pushing back hard.
It's amazing how dependent the United States and, in fact, the world is upon China. They have grabbed supply chains of this stuff around the world, including batteries, including inverters for renewable energy, including solar. But the military applications are enormous and critical to our national security.
I've posted that whole interview on my Twitter account. That's at Eric Bolling, all one word. Election 2020. The rancor. The constant controversy.
Nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
The debate.
I just want to make sure.
The issues.
We won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America this week.
America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, points out how rough and tumble politics shape opinion in every region in our country. We tell American stories, stories that touch our people, determine our politics, focus on the future of America.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America this week. Election 2020. The rancor. The constant controversy.
Nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
The debate.
I just want to make sure.
The issues.
We won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America this week. Both the Trump and Biden campaigns are making the final push to get voters at the polls next Tuesday, but the camps seem to be taking two very different approaches. Let's hear from both sides of the aisle. Sinclair political commentator Amisha Cross and member of the President's National Security Education Board, host of America First on Salem Radio, and Sinclair media contributor Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Okay, Doc, let's start with you. This week, leading up to the election, last couple of days, Biden seems to be staying very close to home. If he gets out of the House, he goes somewhere very close, not far away. He's allowing a very effective, by the way, Barack Obama and Kamala Harris to go to the distant states. Meanwhile, Trump seems to be jumping all over the board. Which is working and why?
I think that's a rhetorical question. When you have Obama come and stump for his vice president and 6 people are at the event, you know, when I had a caller call into America First yesterday who took the time, Eric, and sat down, watched the video feeds of every Biden event in September, and he counted 78 people at those events. The president had, 29,000 yesterday. You can't fake that level of enthusiasm, and never in American history has a presidential candidate hidden in his house for 6 days before a presidential debate. The latest figures on GOP early turnout, mail-in voting is absolutely incredible, figures we've never seen before. And the president's got a fabulous tactic. He did it yesterday. He had 3 events yesterday. He had a giant jumbo screen, and he just showed on the jumbo screen all the lies of Biden when he said, we're going to get rid of fossil fuels. I've never said that. We're going to get rid of fracking. I never said that. So keep on doing exactly what he's doing. And now it's up to us. Everybody who loves this country has to get 3 other people to the polling stations to vote for the president and down ticket GOP. Period.
All right, Misha, I'm not sure if you're a football fan, but there's a term in football. It's called prevent defense, meaning if you're ahead in the ball game and it's going into the last quarter or even the last couple of minutes, you just back off and let the offense kind of move the ball a little bit. You just don't want to make any major mistakes. Is Joe Biden, by the way, I hate prevent Ds. I've seen teams blow big leads in playing prevent D. Is Joe Biden making a mistake by basically working the clock, letting the clock kind of run out?
First off, I'm a huge football fan. Go Pack, go. What I think that Joe Biden is doing is being very attentive to what is happening on the ground. We already have close to 80 million votes cast across this country. And that should be scary to the Trump campaign, because the majority of these are younger voters, are voters who've never voted before, are people of color. All demographics that are not necessarily friendly towards Donald Trump and what he's done to this country. What Joe Biden is doing is making sure that he is hitting the spots that matter the most, hitting the spots that have the votes that he needs. And he's doing the direct mail. He's made sure that his online campaigning is where it needs to be. All of the signs are out. On top of that, he has plans of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Florida in the next few days. He was just in Georgia yesterday. Last time I checked, Georgia is nowhere near where he lives. So to those who believe that he's only staying close to home, that is absolutely incorrect. What Joe Biden and the Biden camp are doing are utilizing everything at their fingertips. Kamala Harris has been out on the campaign trail. The greatest speaker that possibly can be there for Joe Biden, former President Barack Obama, is out on the campaign trail. And we're seeing these things work day in and day out, and they're producing great results in the early voting totals we're already seeing.
All right, Misha, I don't want to correct you, but it's Kamala Harris. Just thought I'd let you know it's Kamala Harris. Sebastian, you push back on Barack Obama, but the man is an effective speaker. He brings energy to what some would say is not a lot of energy going on from the presidential hopeful with Joe Biden himself.
Well, he would if he had any energy in his endorsement. I mean, look at his official quote endorsement video. He waited till the last moment to endorse the person who'd been in the White House with him for 8 years. That's a slap in the face to begin with for Beijing Biden. And then the video, your viewers need to go back and watch it. It was the most desultory, negative, low-energy endorsement I've ever seen in my life. And when somebody who actually controlled the White House, who had access to the nuclear football, comes out to campaign for him this week, and there's 6 people in the room. Wow, that's a slap in the face for Barack Obama himself.
Yeah, Misha, how do you explain that? I mean, enthusiasm is peaking at the right time for the President Trump. I mean, thousands upon thousands, and yet you see these rallies with a smattering of people in the audience. You think the people the voting people are going, I'm not really sure that these polls are right.
I think that the conservative media is trying to paint a picture that is just absolutely false. What we know is that Joe Biden, as well as Barack Obama, are working on a campaign stump that includes drive-in events. These are events where people are literally in their cars.
Can I laugh? Can I just laugh for a second?
Incorrect.
Allow me to just laugh at this. I only have about half a minute. I mean, you can finish your thought here. But these drive-in things where people are beeping their horns when Obama says something like it's almost comical to me. You think it's effective?
I think it's absolutely effective. And I also think that a lot of the votes for the Democrats have already been cast. More will be cast on Election Day. We're seeing record turnout. On top of that, this is a president in terms of Barack Obama, as well as his VP, who understand the threats of COVID-19, which President Trump continues to ignore. So no, those big rallies are actually ignorant because people aren't wearing masks, and we continue to see COVID-19 cases rise across the country.
You make a very good point. Maybe it is all about that mask and social distancing, and I guess the left is making their point. I'm going to leave it right there, guys. Thank you so much. There's a couple days. Election coming up. We'll come back afterwards and see who's right, who's wrong. Amisha, thank you so much. Sebastian, you as well.
Thanks, Eric.
Every week we honor first responders who died in the line of duty protecting our great country. Kevin Collins with the Pine Bluff, Arkansas Police Department was shot and killed earlier this month during an investigation. Detective Collins was with the police department for 5 years and was assigned to the Violent Crimes Unit. He leaves behind his grandparents, parents, brother, and sisters. Investigator Luis Mario Herrera with the Lincoln, Nebraska Police Department died last month after being shot in late August. It happened while he and other officers were serving an arrest warrant. Investigator Herrera was a U.S. Army veteran and was a member of the Nebraska State Patrol. He served the police department for 23 years. Investigator Herrera is survived by his wife and 4 children. Rest in peace, officers. Election 2020. The rancor. The constant controversy.
Nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
The debate.
I just want to make sure.
The issues.
We won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America this week.
America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, points out how rough and tumble politics shape opinion in every region in our country. We tell American stories, stories that touch our people, determine our politics, focus on the future of America.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America this week. Let's talk balls and strikes. She's a reporter for the Washington Post. The Fix, Amber Phillips, is back with us, and we are lucky to get you back, Amber, one of the smartest people on the beat. Amber, let's talk a little about a couple of big Senate races. A lot of people are looking at the White House, but what about the big Senate? Is the balance of power in jeopardy? Let's start with Lindsey Graham versus Jamie Harris in South Carolina Senate seat.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Eric. Let me say the Senate is totally in a situation where the balance of power is in jeopardy. And that matters a ton to both parties, because let's say Joe Biden wins the White House. Well, he's going to need a governing majority in Congress to get anything done, or Republicans will want to have at least one chamber in order to stop Joe Biden's agenda. And so this is a really interesting year where we have like a dozen competitive races, and they're in states that Republicans don't necessarily want to be competitive. The big one you just said is Lindsey Graham. Number of polls over the past couple of weeks have shown him tied in South Carolina with his Democratic challenger, Jamie Harrison. That's just a remarkable thing to say. The other thing I'll say about that race is Jamie Harrison has just knocked out of the park fundraising. Yeah. I mean, his numbers are obscene, what he's done, to the point where, a lot of viewers might know Lindsey Graham went on Fox News and said, please help me fundraise.
Yeah, I'm blown away, Amber, by that. I think Jamie Harrison has raised nearly $100 million. That is just astronomical. I think that's got to be a record for a Senate seat.
Oh, it is, yeah. And every quarter, he's broke the record. That's presidential race money.
Yeah. Okay, another one. Cal Cunningham and Tom Tillis in a neighboring state, an adjacent state, North Carolina.
Yeah, I and a number of strategists and journalists think that the Senate majority could hinge on who wins in North Carolina for a couple different reasons. But the way things look like they're shaping out is whoever wins North Carolina and maybe Maine could take the Senate majority. This is a really interesting state. Strategists there tell me it's the swingiest of swing states from the state house level.
Wait, is that a pun? Is that a pun? Because you just called it the swingiest of swing states, and we know one of the reasons why Cal Cunningham has lost ground to Tom Tillis is because of this little situation he's got going on with a lover.
Yeah, well, so I've been using that term I got from a strategist for months now, but you're right, Eric. In October, Cal Cunningham had these texts released, and it turned out he's been having an affair, even though he's framed himself, I think that's damaging for any candidate, but particularly him, who's framed himself as this military family man. His wife and his 2 kids have been a big part of his campaign. It has absolutely chipped into his numbers, but not so much where we can say, okay, huge affair scandal for the Democrat right before the election, Tom Tillis is going to win. This race is still competitive. And I think that speaks to the enthusiasm among Democrats right now. My colleagues talked to voters in North Carolina who said, I really don't like it. It's an icky thing, but I want Democrats to have the majority, so I'm going to vote for Cal Cunningham. And a thought process like that should worry Tom Tillis and Republicans.
And you pointed out Maine, and so we have Susan Collins and whatnot. So many races are so close, too tight to call, balance of power hangs in the balance, so to speak, with the president all the way down. It could be a blue wave, could be a red wave. Amber Phillips with the Washington Post. We always appreciate you on the show. We'll get you back soon after the election, see how we did.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Amber. Never miss an episode of America This Week. Just set your DVR. We have a complete list of times and cities on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/America Bowling. Our shows and key interviews are also up on YouTube. Search for America This Week and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Election 2020. The rancor. The constant controversy.
Nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
The debate.
I just want to make sure.
The issues.
We won the election and we have the right to choose her.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week.
America This Week, America's fastest growing political show, points out how rough and tumble politics shape opinion in every region in our country. We tell American stories, stories that touch our people, determine our politics, focus on the future of America.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week. Election 2020. The rancor. The constant controversy.
Nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
The debate.
I just want to make sure.
The issues.
We won the election and therefore we have the right to choose her.
I'm Eric Bolling. Join me for a fascinating look at America This Week. Well, this is it, folks. In a matter of days, hopefully, we'll know who will be our next commander-in-chief. If you can vote early, go now. And if you can't, you better get your backside to the polls on Tuesday. This is quite possibly the most important election of our lifetime. Our country can't afford for you or anyone to sit this one out. Have a great night, everybody.
Oh, wait, let me finish signing that for your daughter. Okay, see that? That's what you call it. Look at that. How does that look? It'll be on eBay tonight. Okay, thank you very much. That's great, isn't it? Come on over here, Daniel. Come on. Come here, Daniel. How does it look? Good? You love pumpkins? Are you the pumpkin farm, the big one in the area?
We mostly do apples.
Apples more so, huh? Those apples look good.
They are.
I'm going to take some apples back to the White House. These are better. These are better than the ones they get. That's beautiful. Thank you very much. That's good. We'll do something. We'll do that. Yeah, I want to grab some of that. Oh, beautiful. Those are the real deal, right?
Let's talk balls and strikes. She's a reporter for the Washington Post. The Fix, Amber Phillips, is back with us, and we are lucky to get you back, Amber, one of the smartest people on the beat. Amber, let's talk a little about a couple of big Senate races. A lot of people are looking at the White House, but what about the big Senate? Is the balance of power in jeopardy? Let's start with Lindsey Graham versus Jamie Harris in South Carolina Senate seat.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Eric. Let me say the Senate is totally in a situation where the balance of power is in jeopardy. And that matters a ton to both parties because let's say Joe Biden wins the White House. Well, he's going to need a governing majority in Congress to get anything done, or Republicans will want to have at least one chamber in order to stop Joe Biden's agenda. And so this is a really interesting year where we have like a dozen competitive races, and they're in states that Republicans don't necessarily want to be competitive. The big one you just said is Lindsey Graham Number of polls over the past couple of weeks have shown him tied in South Carolina with his Democratic challenger, Jamie Harrison. That's just a remarkable thing to say. The other thing I'll say about that race is Jamie Harrison has just knocked out of the park fundraising.
Yeah.
I mean, his numbers are obscene, what he's done, to the point where, a lot of viewers might know Lindsey Graham went on Fox News and said, please help me fundraise.
Yeah. I'm blown away, Amber, by that. I think Jamie Harrison has raised nearly $100 million. That is just astronomical. I think that's got to be a record for a Senate seat.
It is, yeah. And every quarter, he's broke the record. That's presidential race money.
Yeah. Okay, another one. Cal Cunningham and Tom Tillis in a neighboring state, an adjacent state, North Carolina.
Yeah, I and a number of strategists and journalists think that the Senate majority could hinge on who wins in North Carolina for a couple different reasons. But the way things look like they're shaping out is whoever wins North Carolina and maybe Maine could take the Senate majority. This is a really interesting state. Strategists there tell me it's the swingiest of swing states from the state house level.
Wait, is that a pun? Is that a pun? Because you just called it the swingiest of swing states, and we know one of the reasons why Cal Cunningham has lost ground to Tom Tillis is because of this little situation he's got going on with a lover.
Yeah, well, so I've been using that term I got from a strategist for months now, but you're right, Eric. In October, Cal Cunningham had these texts released, and it turned out he's been having an affair, even though he's framed himself, I think that's damaging for any candidate, but particularly him, who's framed himself as this military family man. His wife and his 2 kids have been a big part of his campaign. It has absolutely chipped into his numbers, but not so much where we can say, okay, huge affair scandal for the Democrat right before the election, Tom Tillis is going to win. This race is still competitive, and I think that speaks to the enthusiasm among Democrats right now. My colleagues talked to voters in North Carolina who said, I really don't like it. It's an icky thing, but I want Democrats to have the majority, so I'm going to vote for Cal Cunningham. And a thought process like that should worry Tom Tillis and Republicans.
And you pointed out Maine, and so we have Susan Collins and whatnot. So many races are so close, too tight to call. Balance of power hangs in the balance, so to speak, with the president all the way down. It could be a blue wave, could be a red wave. Amber Phillips with the Washington Post. We always appreciate you on the show. We'll get you back soon after the election, see how we did.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Amber.